welcome back to Ironstove. I know it's been a while, but it's been a lot of work and stress and all that shit. Anyway, today we'll be talking about this. Yes, those were disturbing clips. For those of you who are taking part of this podcast the visual way, if you want to view these clips in its entirety, you can find them in the Instagram account Polisnytt or Police News. I'll have the link to the Instagram account linked down below, if you so wish it. Anyway, today we will again talk about the alarming use of force from law enforcement of Sweden and of course Swedish security guards, and the background to the slogan 1312 or ACAB, all cops are bastards. Now, before I go any further in this podcast, I should tell you, as the police and security guards of Sweden will tell you, they have a difficult, dangerous and challenging job. Now, and no one with any common sense will disagree with that. But if anything, that's all the more reason to make sure it's done to the highest standards. Because if you haven't kept up with the recent event of these derbies and games in Sweden, some of the supporters has been bleeding very much from the use of force from these law enforcement and security guards. And that's why it's all the more reason we make sure the use of force is used in proportion to what's happening. Now, it stands to reason that you shouldn't generalize anyone, but when it comes to organizations and people with power, you sort of have to. And it's not just about the police or security guards, it's political parties and any organization around the globe, FIFA or any other organization. You need to judge them in its entirety. Why? Because they have power. And this power is distributed to these to the law enforcement, to every single police, to every single security guard. And now these people need this power to maintain order and stuff like that. But again, all the more reason we make sure it's done to the highest standard. And unfortunately, these people are protected by the state. Therefore, whether it's police or security guards, these people are basically agents of the state. They work for the state. So obviously we have to judge them as a group, the same way you judge a board of directors. Now, even though you can argue, yeah, well, but not all of them are bad. No, but fortunately they are part of a power structure. And unfortunately, all people in that power structure have to abide by the power structure. There isn't much difference. For example, if I work in a supermarket, I mean, the employees there all answer to a power structure in a way, even though it may sound like a silly example, but we have employees, we have team leaders, we have a boss, just like security guards and police and political parties and FIFA. They all have the same similar structure. For example, if I'm being told by my boss I have to do something, I have to do it. Otherwise, I will be in the risk of being let go. So therefore, I have to comply. Same goes with these police officers and security guards. Hence the slogan, all cops are bastards, because it addresses the system, the power structure, which all of these people are part of. And even though some of them, like someone could argue before, well, not all of them are bad, but still all of these people have to abide by this power structure. Now, just like me in the supermarket example, and a single police officer and a single security guard, they and me have an option, of course. We can resign. And that's why it's basically important to judge everyone as a group, because they are all linked by a power structure. And that's the difference between them and the rest of us, because even though citizens are bound by law and shit, we are not necessarily bound by the same structure. Now, some citizens are part of a group, or maybe different groups of different kinds, like ultras, hooligans, or other people who have a leader or structure. True, they do, but not necessarily all citizens are part of those groups. That's the difference. However, in a sense that all cops and security guards answer to one's power structure, so do we citizens. We all have to submit when we go through airports. We all have to submit to going through security, checkpoints, and stuff like that. In those situations, we citizens are viewed, everybody, all citizens. All citizens has to be considered, for safety reasons, a threat, right? Same way, we have to view security guards and law enforcement, because they are linked. Again, like political party and any organization like FIFA, etc., etc. Hence the slogan, all cops are bastards, or all security guards are bastards. It addresses the system, the power structure. Now, it's stuff like this that gives me trust issues. It's hard for me to trust law enforcement and security guards overall when they act like this. Now, in this part of the podcast, I'm gonna go ahead and name a specific example. specifically an incident that took place in 2021, if I'm not mistaken. And it took place in Solna Station, or Solna Station.
Vänta, vi går ner här. Kolla hur många sidor det är. Det är polis. Fuck!
Now, for those of you who want to see the original video, I'll have the video linked down below if any of you is interested. Now, there are a couple of things I want to go over in this clip, because there are some things that I took part from the internal investigation from this incident, where some of these cops were interviewed. The parts of their story that, frankly, I call BS. And there are certain things that also confirm the victim's story, because there are some things in this video that is beyond dispute. Now, there is a part of this incident that I want to go over very thoroughly, very carefully, if you will. Now, for context sake, I should tell you, before this incident occurred, there was a brief standoff between a couple of supporters and Swedish police officers, where a couple of supporters were throwing things. So naturally this leads to the police officers following them and have to detain them and conduct a certain investigation or whatever. Now, as you can see in the original clip, they go down the escalator. Now, around in the middle of the escalator, there is another standoff, briefly mind you, where there is a standoff between a female police officer and a couple of female Djurgården supporters. Now, according to her own statement in this internal investigation of theirs, she says, and I quote, "When I come down the escalator, there are a couple of girls who is part of the crowd that is causing trouble and actively blocking my path. I tell them to move, but they don't listen. I then grab one of the girls and move her aside. Her friends then grabs me and try to push me. I then grab hold of that person who grabs me and try to push her away from me." Now, the girls who was having the standoff with the female police officer, they say, one of them says the following, and I quote, "There were police officers coming down the escalator. Seeing as the escalator was full, we were unable to move. At this point, a female police officer then pushed my friend rather aggressively. At this point, I yelled at the police to stop and tried to get in between. At this point, she grabbed my hair and pushed me, or grabbed and pushed me." End quote. Okay, and according to this, this female supporter also got confirmed by another witness name that described this event as a pure assault. Now, obviously, some part of this is obviously she said and she said, but let's go through specific events, specific parts of this whole escalation that took part. Now, here we go. They are down the escalator, and we can immediately see that the escalator was full, as the female supporter stated. Now, as for the female police officer, you can clearly see at least her part of a statement that says that the girls were part of the crowd that was, quote, causing trouble, end quote. Now, although this small fragments of the video that I'm showing you here doesn't show everything because it's hard to see everything here, but clearly, at the very least, this police officer is exaggerating part of the event. And at the very least, you can see that the female supporter is telling the truth. As you can see here, where you can clearly see the escalator is clearly full, and therefore the female supporter are unable to move. And I find it highly unlikely that the female officer didn't notice. So the simple explanation for me, from my part, is that she noticed that the escalator is full, but she couldn't care. She simply was annoyed, aggravated that the female supporter was telling her to stop her from moving her friend so aggressively, and therefore she were even more aggressive. She was more angry, and therefore she then grabbed hold of her body and hair, according to witnesses, and then pushed her aside, which, as you can see in the video, caused her to lose her balance. Now, obviously, this part is not enough to it isn't enough to bring to a trial for it isn't enough to prosecute on, right? But it is enough to call out on this female police officer's part of the story, to doubt her part of the story, which I personally call complete BS on. I don't buy her side of the story at all. Now, last part I want to discuss of this incident is when the police officers have trapped the supporters and this happens. Now here you can clearly see the police officers have trapped the supporters, and you can clearly see their abuse of the pepper spray, which some legal experts have proclaimed to be clearly illegal, but according to the prosecutor, who declined to prosecute, stated that it was necessary to maintain order. Right. They have nightsticks and yet they clearly need to use so much pepper spray. BS. Now, I like to finish this podcast with a picture of a Malmö football club's banner, tifo, which reads, "Resistance has no club colors. Fight police brutality." End quote. And of course, brutality from security guards. And that's where we all are united. So continue filming with every camera you have in your possession. Continue to document everything police are doing. Together we can create pressure which may push the debate in our favor. Thank you for listening. Remember to follow this YouTube channel and podcast on Spotify and YouTube, and I'll see you next video.